Welcome to another Wisdom Wednesday. I'm very excited for the third week. Last week we talked about allowing room for flexibility, to let go of control and just be open to what comes and the changes that come with that. And today I wanted to show up, and because I'm a sucker for vulnerability and authenticity, I wanted to practice what I preach and just talk about something that I think I've been thinking about this whole week, but really it just kind of hit home in the past hour, and that is showing up for yourself. I think another way to say that is just self-compassion. I think sometimes it's super easy to be so kind, compassionate, and caring to the people around us, and yet internally we can become so self-critical, self-berating, or just very judgmental towards ourselves. And that's definitely something I struggle with. Honestly, kind of being kind to myself, and instead of putting on all this pressure and all these expectations. And if someone could, hear the dialogue going on in my head, they'd be like, "Ooh, that sounds a little toxic. You better get rid of them." So today's topic is about self-compassion, and kind of just want to explore, okay, what does that look like? How can we be more kind and compassionate to ourselves? And I guess some things that I've learned on the way that I'm hoping that I can keep practicing, and would love to hear from you too of what you think. Self-compassion is something that is so important and yet so challenging, and it blows my mind because I know the kindest people that are there when you need them, are there always willing to help other people, and yet I also know that sometimes they struggle with being kind to themselves. And I think this is a very relevant subject that a lot of us might face, but the importance of being kind to yourself, the importance of self-compassion, I think is a topic worth talking about, because number one, we're with ourselves the whole way through, right? The whole journey. And if we're constantly being self-critical, judgmental, that's not the way to live the most mindful and fun life. I know this is something I struggle with my perfectionism of being kind to myself. As someone that is goal-oriented, I'm constantly thinking, okay, how can you improve? But instead of that being in a positive spin, it turns out to be, oh, you should be doing better, you should be doing more, you should not have done that because it could have been better, like putting out content if I'm not rehearsed or things like that. I think sometimes we are our own worst critics, and we get so in our heads and we stay in our heads that it prevents us from actually sharing anything, because we're so afraid of how other people could potentially judge us. I know I'm a victim of this, that I definitely think, I love this quote, and I am butchering who said it, and hopefully I won't butcher how to say it, but I read it in Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk book, where it's, I am not who I think I am not who you think I am who I think you think I am. And that quote really hits home. Sometimes we live our lives looking out from another perspective out of fear of how other people could judge us. And I think that really just ends up holding us back. And this all ties in for me into, okay, how can we be our most authentic and true selves? And whether we're feeling 110% or we're feeling just that 5-10 low day, how can we be kinder to ourselves as we go through this journey? Okay, what does self-compassion look like? How can we actually show up for ourselves? I read a whole book on this a few years ago. I think it's called Self-Compassion. And I can't remember a single thing from it. But okay, what I'm trying to practice is right now for this. Today I'm just not feeling 100% feeling very low energy and just drained, even though I don't have a lot of stuff on my plate. But I'm also in this transitional period of my life where I'm a busy body doer, which I use to define myself, and I want to really change that and learn how to rest, recuperate, and enjoy the present moment. And as I'm going through this journey, I start to hear that self-critical voice going, well, you should be doing more. You should be, learning how to edit films at least 3 times a day. You should be reading a book a week. You should blah, 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 blah. And to practice self-compassion, in this moment, I'm showing up as I am instead of how I think I should be. And I'm telling myself that is better than good enough. That is all I can ask, and this is what I can do. So, really, just practicing being your own best friend. I jumped to the tagline, but this is also a little tactic that I do. I notice when I hear my friend talk about grades, for example, they didn't do well in a class, they thought that they should be doing better. I come up to them and I tell them, look, you put in your effort, you learned, you got things out of it, you grew from it, you were doing amazing, and this grade does not define you. Reverse the situation. I come to my friend and I'm like, look at me, I did not get a good score on this test, and I'm using it to define who I am. And I'm in a lack of self-compassion in that situation. One tactic that I've been practicing throughout the years is talk to myself as I would talk to my best friend. So this might sound a little crazy, but I literally at night, I just have an internal dialogue with myself. If I'm laying there and I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling upset or something, I just say in my head, hey, what's up? What's going on? And then usually it pops up. It's like, okay, I had this grade and I thought I could do better on this test, and I'm upset because I put in so much time from it. It's like, okay, well, what would you tell your best friend? I would tell them, look, I can see your work and how much you value your learning and your education, and I can see how much you've grown in it. That is something to be proud of, and that is what you should focus on instead of the one little thing that didn't meet your expectation. So coming at it from a place of love and a place of compassion and care, for some reason it's slightly easier for me when I think about it as another person. But I think that's just part of the journey of learning how to really be our full authentic selves and how to show up for ourselves. So today's question of the week is, what's an area in your life that you could incorporate more self-compassion in, and what is a way that you can do that? Is that a conversation with yourself? Is that through journaling and just seeing what comes out, showing up for yourself in that way? What are ways to show up for yourself, especially on the days that you are not feeling 100% you, or 100% just energy wise and how you want to be? Anyway, that is today's little jumble of a mess of Wisdom Wednesday. But you know what? That's part of life. Life is not linear. Life is not compartmentalized. I'm messing up with that word, but you know what I mean. And life is not organized all the time. We gotta go with it. This week, besides trying to incorporate self-compassion and showing up for yourself, which I haven't been doing a great job of, and so today I'm really going to be focusing in on that. For things that I'm learning, I am about to finish the autobiography of Malcolm X, and this book, I'm not going to do a good job of eloquently explaining the power and the impact of this book, but it is phenomenal, I believe. I very much admire his way of telling his story, and I'm so thankful for the amount that I get to learn from this man's life. Maybe I'll end up summarizing it next week once I finish it, because I still have about 80 pages. But if you have read it, I would love to hear your thoughts on Malcolm X's autobiography. If you have not read it, highly recommend. But I feel like I'm going to end up saying that about every book that I talk about, that I highly recommend it, but this is true. But yeah, let me know, how can you show up for yourself more, regarding being more self-compassionate, and what that would look like for you in this upcoming week. And I hope you have a wise and mindful week.